techniques. I like to present them in a format of kind of 4 different phases. The setup, that would be the off-balancing, or in this case reacting if it was an attack. From the setup, the entry, putting your body in position to make the move work, and oftentimes you don't want to tie your body in a knot with your opponent until you have the proper setup where they're off balance or you have a positional advantage or some kind of a base advantage against their lack of base. So from setup to entry, then we have execution, not but doing the technique, applying the force in the right direction, doing the technique, and then always your last result should be the control. Control what you've done after you've hurt them. If you're talking about a self-defense scenario, just controlling them because you worked yourself into a submission hold or a pin. And I think I'll kind of use that format as we're talking about the Kimura today. On the setups, there's a bunch of them. I'm going to show you at first kind of what we're not focusing on, but if you're not familiar with some of the newer folks with the Kimura, there's a lot of different ways to make this work. And then I'll show you a way that I like that's also related to more of the self-defense application. And if I could borrow Tony for a sec, just in my guard.
No, you're good. Yeah. Just to kind of give you an agenda for today. So we're going to do 45 minutes each. 45 minutes with JT, Kimura, working that. For me, it's going to be triangle. I'm going to cover some stuff. I just taught triangle a couple weeks ago, things that I didn't have a chance to do, just ran out of time. And then we're going to give a half hour of sparring, free rolling, or if you guys wanted to work on something specific, but that half hour is yours. I prefer it to be rolling, but you guys, listen to your bodies, do what you want. Cool? All right, let's get to it.
And I'm going to need at least 4 volunteers if you can raise your hand real quick. All right. When that clock turns into 11:44, I want the 1-minute warning. Shut up can be a good, appropriate warning. Stop, it's time. You're not disrespecting me or the mat or anybody by letting me know, JT, your turn is over.
We're both old, so we talk a lot. It's basically what we're trying to say.
So if I have Tony in my guard, and some of the basic, simple Kimuras that the people with experience have all...
You know, left on that, right?
Yeah, I'm not even going to go into it. Just the setups from here, putting the hand on the ground. Then I have the arm for the Kimura. One of my favorites is a clothesline. I'll attempt a hip bump, but instead of wrapping over the shoulder for a hip bump, I'll clothesline somebody that puts their arm out and then dive for the wrist. It could be more of a self-defense thing if you wanted to, if you were clotheslining with a strike, or just everyday grappling that works. You don't have to hit anybody, you just need to put that influence. We have the hip bump. I try a failed hip bump. There's my Kimura. So those all work. The problem, and I have a little bit of a self-defense orientation that I want to work on this today. The problem from the self-defense aspect of those, if Tony and I were just grappling, normal grappling like you do every day, there's no consequence if you don't defend against strikes because he's not hitting me and I'm not hitting him. And therefore
And I swear, we swept this mat before we got here. So I'm going to blame him for the hair on the mat. Or Phil. It's Phil's fault.
Yeah, there's the proof. So if this is a regular grappling match and I'm trying to grab Tony's gi or get in chokes or do an arm, this is great, but watch his ability to punch me. Boom, and I'm kind of toast. So this application of the Kimura, I don't want to overly make a big deal about it, can work in everyday grappling really well. It also has a place in the self-defense arena. Because if we were playing the self-defense game, this is the worst position space-wise that I can be with one of the best positions to control somebody there is. If I need to keep this on the ground. Remember, self-defense, my goal is to be standing, not down here. So what I want to do from the self-defense perspective is if I were in the first position of defending punches, which would mean if there was space here, I like to get into this position by praying Tony doesn't hit me. I'll pull him in with my legs. I have the inside all wrapped, and I have Tony's arm and I have his head. what I'm going to do is switch this around if we can. There we go, thanks Tom. Phil, sorry if that interrupted your angle. So from here, pulling them in, watching my face so I don't get headbutt, and I have this controlled position. Here's where I'm going to start my Kimura, and there's kind of a couple ways that I can do that. Show you both. Way one is if I have to go in and get it. Now from a grappling standpoint, this is very likely just straight grappling because I want to pull Tony off posture. If he was posturing up to start to pass the guard or to make a move, I want to keep him down. So it's very likely I'd be doing this, never mind the self-defense application. This would be good. Other times there's people that will bury themselves in your chest because they don't know what else to do. Or they're taking time to breathe or to rest or protecting themselves. So when I have Tony in this position, kind of my punch block position one, position here tight, what I'm going to do is a little slight shrimp to the side, and I'm taking my arm over and I want this. If I can control Tony's head to the best of my ability with my tricep, I'm pushing down with my shoulder and my tricep right here in his head. That's going to help me set up this Kimura. He's likely to want to come up. If he does, I go, that's fine with me if you want to, because I ride him up. If we can do that again, watch me. I'm not even going to use this elbow to help me on this. Tony pulls me up. Let's go back. If I'm trying to keep him down and he's pulling strength against strength, I want to go with the flow one more time. He pulls me up because of this grip here. From here, if you notice, as soon as I came up, I have some things that I want to do. I want to drop this foot because that's going to help my hip go on out to my right. I have him winged here, and what's very important is that I don't grip here first like most of us do. That's kind of the giveaway to Tony, and he has a lot of ability to extract that hand or make it hard for me before this is seated. So when I ride him up, put this foot here, I'm up on my elbow for support, but this wants to go in first. Once I have this tight, and now we're in for the fight, then I can grab, and now I'm going to grab for my wrist. You have a choice, grab for your wrist now, or grab for your wrist on the way down. Kind of depends on the length of his arm, the length of your arm.
Keep in mind the shoulder doesn't go back.
Very good. So as I'm grabbing, I'm going to grab. Now when I go down, a lot of us in the past, and I'm going to pretend I'm holding Tony's wrist, go down. And that can work a lot of time until Tony doesn't want to go down. If I'm grabbing here going down, I'm trying to go down now, and I'm just hanging off him. Even if this arm was off the ground, because I was holding it, I'm just hanging off him, and it may not be good enough. It wouldn't be good enough for Tony's size in relationship to me if he was resisting going down. Certainly wouldn't be good enough for Mike going down. So once I have this arm here, have this here, right up, elbow, foot, I'm in. Once I get down, I want my feet on the ground. And I'm going to do this without pulling Tony with me for the first. Pretend I have this grip. With feet on the ground, I'm lifting my hips and driving my shoulders back, as opposed to just falling. That's going to take the monsters with me more often than not, than have me just hang off like a grape off a vine, dangling there because their support structure is not moving. So kaboom, I'm in, watch my hips come off, and I go straight back. If I do this right, our spine should be parallel. That gives me the most force. Can I borrow you real quick? You're good right there, Tom. If you're on your knees, actually I could have used Tom. Strength lines and weak lines. This works for anywhere somebody stands, on their knees, a knee and a foot. Anytime you draw an imaginary line between their base of support, and then what was your first name? Alex, in this case, Alex, that's Alex's knees. When I go along the line of his base of support, he can resist being off balanced the easiest. That's not an efficient way for me to take him down. I'm going to push a little bit. Don't put him. Anything perpendicular to his base of support, that's the easiest angle, the way bodies are structured, to lose your balance, forward or back. Thanks. So with that in mind, if you notice Tony's knees, if I'm going to lock up for the Kimura position, what's the most efficient angle to get Tony off balance? It's going to be right there. Where a lot of times, when people learn this, or even execute it, and they want to pull their hip out, they'll slide their hip out on the way down, and kind of use this angle. It's part of Tony's weak line, but it's also part of Tony's strength line. If my job is to get this person down so I can control their shoulder, and then I always want to ask myself, what should my hips be doing? In this case, up, because they're going to be part of the power that's throwing my shoulders back. There. I'm doing this just with my hips in the air. That's it. So from here, we sat, we grabbed, hips off the ground, straight back, and at this point I can keep my guard, and I have Tony right here. What I want you to do is work on that part, and then we're going to build on that. But I want to make sure that you're comfortable with this grip, and I'll go one more time. We're starting from a...
That was the mat. That noise was the mat.
Yes. Squeaky mats. Squeaky clean mats, by the way. As I pull Tony into my punch control, I'm going to shrink a tiny bit, push his head off. Now I have this control. I'm not very punchable right now. I'm connected. From here, if Tony sits up, I let him pull me up. Now if Tony doesn't sit up, then I have to put myself up, and that's okay. This foot, this elbow, here, and then bring my elbow under me. Then I'm in. So that's if I'm forcing the technique. More often than not, if I wait a little bit, Tony will pull me up. I'm here, feet flat, straight back, and let's just end right there. And then we'll go on to the next phase of building that. Go ahead. Pair up. And anything you want to add before we have him do just that phase?
No.
No?
You'll mind if I break you for just a minute?
Yes,
Logistics. First of all, thank you everyone for being here. Most of y'all know we're raising money for Hurricane Elaine. I want to thank everybody for coming. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jeff. I own the place. I want to especially thank Tony and JT for volunteering their time to be here, teach us some of their best stuff. I always learn stuff from these guys. I think you will as well. So great news. We've raised almost $2,200 so far. Thanks to everybody who's here. Incredible, right? Donations continue to roll in. If you are interested in donating, you can we have a list of approved charities on our Instagram that Blue Ridge Public Radio has told us. You can also just Venmo me, and I will pass it on we're donating to a charity called Operation Airdrop, which directly drops assistance to affected hurricane communities. Nobody's under any pressure to do that. I'll do what you feel moved to do. Thank you for helping. We're all doing what we can. I'm going to be at all 4 of our special classes. 11 a.m. no-gi today and tomorrow, 5 p.m. gi today and tomorrow. I plan to train at this class, but I've forgotten, in exchange for a donation, I've promised to judge a college debate. And so I'm going to go in the back and judge a college debate for 1 hour, and then I will come and roll with my friends. It's embarrassing, but I promised, and a promise is a promise. Any questions for me, y'all? Welcome back, Jessica. Thank you all for being here.
What's the debate topic?
The debate topic is about it's about cap and trade for climate change.
Okay.
It's boring as shit. So, but this will be a lot more interesting. Kimuras are way more fun. Have fun, y'all. See you today.
All right, let's pair up. Let's just do this part a couple of times. Get up and get our grips. Let our opponent do most of the work for us. And let's fall straight back and keep that control. And then we'll move on to the real application. So,
Can I just advise, grab somebody you don't know, grab somebody you don't know.
Some of this may be old school and you do this in your sleep. Yes, yes, yes. I think one of the keys of this is really getting the sensitivity to follow your opponent up if they're trying to make space. If you pull them on your chest and they're sitting, is keeping Tony's arm from collapsing to his waist. There's my thumb. If I have a monkey grip with no thumb there, Tony not only can collapse it, but he breaks my grip. When we do our wrist escapes, where do we get out? Where the thumb and the fingers are. If I remove the thumb already, I took the door off the building, people can just walk in. So I want this grip here until I get my grip. Now my grip, this grip can be a monkey grip. I can change this grip now to a monkey grip, which is thumb on the other side, which is stronger. And the reason I can do that is this hand now is keeping Tony's arm from getting away. So from here, so it doesn't get away until I solidify, monkey grip, monkey grip. Now now I have more control. So when we're getting our grips up top, if Tony was in my guard, and we got to the position of here, I'm diving down. We want this right here. We want to use our thumb. Without this, watch him just pull his arm. There he's out of my grip. I have nothing. Use that thumb. This grip can be your monkey grip, and then you can change this if and when you want to, because again, you're using the other arm to protect. All right, now once we get, let's turn this way again. Once we follow Tony up, well, another thing we can do, if we were starting from this controlled position, instead of going here and sitting up if Tony doesn't pull me up, or using this grip to pull me up, if we were here in Tony's saddle, I use that to pull me up and then go in. So the same kind of a sequence there, whether you were on the other side of his head or not. So here I am. I now have my grips. We have our feet on the ground. I didn't put my hips up, but hips up and I come back and I have Tony. Now as a very general rule of thumb, if Tony's hips are high, can you get on your knees? Yeah, his hips are high. Then this leg is high, meaning it goes on his hip. And what I need to do is I need to shrink my hip out and I need to change my angle. So Tony keeps his hips high for a minute. What I'm going to do, I'm not applying the technique yet, I'm controlling the arm, but I push down on the leg and shrink. I move my hip, then I move my shoulder. Move my hip and I move my shoulder. What I eventually want is our spine in 90 degrees. Now that's easy to do as long as his hips stay high. His hips are high, there's space under there. There's nothing, there's some pressure on this leg, but it's not blocking the leg. Push and shrink, push and shrink. What I'd like Tony to be in the position is all the way down. And maybe when I put my feet and throw myself back, I give myself a little bit more of a chance to get him down a little flatter. If he's off his knees and laying on my leg, there's no longer space under there. And I see a lot of people putting their foot on the hip, but if he's laying on my leg, I have no room to really pull that leg out. So what I've sacrificed, what he took away from me is space, but then I have to always look at what he gave me. He gave me the gift of leverage. So as he's down, my foot now is going to drop. And I'm going to drop right here on the other side of his leg. If my foot was on his hip, pushing down to help squirt my hip out, my leg is helping his hip pin my leg. The very leg I want to scoot out. So putting pressure here defeats the whole purpose, and you make little snail moves, and it doesn't work well. If I can take my foot off of here and put it here, now the motion I have from the leverage of this, I'm able to shrimp out and pull that leg out. And that's the way I can change my ankle. So when we practice this and you get into this position, again, if hips are high, your leg is high. Push down, hip out, move your shoulder, hip out, move your shoulder. If his hip is high, keep your leg high. When I apply the technique and fold his arm over, I want my body at 90 degrees if I can, because I'm going to roll. A lot of people, especially in the beginning, want to just use arm strength to move the arm. And sometimes you're lucky, especially if you're bigger and stronger, you get away with your strength oftentimes. That's how you do your business. But if you ran into somebody bigger and stronger than you, and you're used to just arm strength, you might have a failure. So I apply this technique by welding this together, turning my body. This shoulder goes to the mat. Point. Let me get it for 1 second here. We'll practice all this in just a second, I promise. But just a few details that I want to give you. Can I borrow you for a second? What was your first name?
Griffin.
Griffin? Turn around here. Let's look at Griffin's shoulder for a second. His humerus bone, his scapula, his collarbone. You have actually 3 joints up here, where the collarbone connects to the humerus. The main joint, the one we're attacking, is the humerus to the back of the scapula, and I don't know what other bone inserts, but there's another little weenie joint in there. If you think about the socket, that's behind here, that's your scapula. If you think that's your socket, your humerus, your bone here, has a big round knob on it, just like any dog bone you've ever seen, and it fits in here. And what we're doing, and it's made to rotate and made to move a lot of angles that your shoulder's made to work with. One angle it's not made to work with is the one that we're exploiting. Now think about the socket, the ball, and now pretend you had a tennis ball here. That was the socket. My fingers are no longer the end of the humerus, but these are tendons and ligaments, tying that all together. And if we keep the joint in here compacted tight, the musculature around that shoulder can help pull that tight, and it creates a lot of drag. It takes more power for me to twist that within the socket when everything is kind of pulling it tight already. What I really want to do is envision ball, socket, and then over this ball are all these ligaments and tendons. Think about them as rubber bands. As I pull this away from the socket, I'm stretching the ligaments attach bone to bone, tendons attach muscle to bone. I'm stretching that. The tolerances I'm taking out, and I'm using this long-winded story to say that when I apply the technique on this, and then I'm going to fold his arm over, I want to pull that socket a little bit, that ball, out of the socket. Because when I do, I'm tightening up a lot of the ligaments and tendons. I'm taking up the looseness of the space he has. And so when I apply the technique, those ligaments and tendons are already tight. Can I use your shoulder for a minute so I don't accidentally hurt a tight shoulder? So if we were here on this technique, and I push down, his legs are high, or his hip is high, so I'm pushing down, shrimp, 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 shrimp. Right here, this space between his armpit and mine, I need to take all that space away. And once I'm a little more 90 degrees, you see how he came down? As soon as he's down, I want this. It's going to give me a little pull. I'm pulling this way first. This way. I'm pushing with my thigh, pushing with the thigh that's down there, kind of pushing off his torso and pulling my torso away, extending away. There's some pressure now. That pulled out. That stretched some of the ligaments and tendons. And now watch when I fold his arm over, how little I have to move because I did that. If I don't do that, loosen your shoulder up a little bit. Good enough. You may have your arm. If I don't do that, I just moved 4 times the range right there before he tapped. It's just a little bit, but it's the difference of being smaller, being lighter, taking care of the monsters by just kind of using the anatomy and using that leverage. So kind of all together, if we can, man. And let's turn this way. So, oh no, Emma's up here and she might be hitting me in this application. I pray she doesn't. I pull her in. I get into my control position here so she can't hit. I decide I want to do the Kimura. My cue is she comes up, oh, I'm holding her here and pulls me up, and I go for it. Or my cue is that I decide to go after it, push her head, get her under my armpit, shrimp a bit, and then if she comes up, I go after it. Or I do that and she's not coming up, but I don't want to lay here all day. I'll be the one that comes up without her pulling me. With the help of this foot, this elbow, swinging around, and when it come up, bring it underneath me, and then I can get my grip. So I have my grip, feet on the ground, hips off the ground, I go back. My spine should be parallel to Emma's if I'm doing this right. I didn't talk a lot about it, but right now is when this has to be very tight. You shouldn't be able to fit a popsicle stick between my armpit and Emma's arm. If it's loose, that takes up space. I have to push harder. It gives her room to wiggle out. Lock it down, lock it down. Now, Emma's hips are up, so my foot goes up. I'm going to shrink. Pretend you went all the way flat. So here how she went flat. I can't push off her hip because I'm pinning my own leg. So I go in between her legs and I have my leverage here, shoulder, straighten, shoulder. Now I'll come over top. I have her tight. Are you okay down there?
Yep.
Stay right there. This is Emma's arm. When I fold her arm over, a lot of people say aim for the head. And what really is accurate is aim for the direction of the head. This arm needs to fold parallel to her spine. If I get closer to her head, yes, you'll get a tap, but you have to travel much further, and you're not engaging all of the nerves that you need to feel this. Straight over. So that's a little cleaner angle than a lot of us maybe at first taught coming through here. So I have Emma here. This is tight. Instead of arm strength, roll. Roll. If this was a self-defense situation, I needed to finish this. I just go fast. And that hurts your arm. Enough of my talking. Anything to add, Tony? Point I missed? Or, no? All right, let's give it a shot.
But actually, understand some people are going to have a lot more flexibility in their shoulder than other people. Tap them. Don't tap the mat. They may not hear. They may not notice. So, but let them get it to a submission, right? Let them. They need to feel that resistance that comes just before the submission happens. Okay.
Yeah, we're not pressure testing right now. We're not see if it works, see if it doesn't. Let's kind of get the roadmap there so we know where we're going. If everything works perfect, and then we can worry about adjustments if it's not. All right. Can't believe we're on timing. All right, grab a partner and let's see if this works. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3.